Hey there, this is Tyler,
And I'm Justin.
and this is Newbies to Movies, a podcast where we like to talk about new movies that we're watching. And this week we have a guest here. It is my father, Tyrone. Just want to introduce yourself and then give us a rundown of what kind of movies you like to watch.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast, guys. Tyrone Dindle here. Movies, I'm all over the place, but gangster movie is probably my number one. I love gangster crime type. The poster up on the back of your wall there, Tyler, he's one of my favorite. I've probably seen that one alone 20. Wars, probably a close second, though. That's why I really enjoyed doing some research on this one. Recently, I've been doing some documentaries, though. John Candy passed away in 94, famous comedian. I didn't realize there was some depth to some personal challenges he had, which I had no idea. So I like watching documentaries just to see what's behind the actors themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't seen that one, but it's been always popping up on Amazon Prime, so I may check it out at some point. Cool. So, like to start off with what for the past week, what have you guys been watching? Any shout outs for any shows or any movies?
Yeah,
Justin, you wanna get started?
Halloween night, I decided to go back and watch Werewolf by Night. I texted you, and I still really enjoy that. But other than that, just a lot of sports. Watched the World Series last night. That was pretty tragic for the Blue Jays, but
Yeah. Yeah, I've been watching the Welcome to Derry. It comes out each week. Second episode came out Halloween. I didn't get to watch that one, but the first one, it's going against a lot of horror rules or even show rules, so that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing Pennywise come into it. I've also been binging Landman, which is a pretty popular show out made by Taylor Sheridan, same guy that did Yellowstone. And then I watched 3 movies in theaters this week. I watched Begonia, I watched Roofman, and I saw Springsteen last night. Out of the Begonia, they're all pretty good. But my favorite is probably Springsteen, but that's just because I like Springsteen music a lot. So I really resonated with it well. But yeah, anything for you for the last week, Dad?
Yeah, for me, a lot of sports. Like Justin watched the World Series last night as a thriller ending. The John Candy, I would recommend seeing it. It's really good. Before your guys' time, but still, I mean, he has a legacy of comedic films under his belt, so definitely recommend seeing that one. It was really interesting. And then just odd and ends, sort of war. I'm always like any kind of documenting about World War II. There seems to be a series on right now, so I've chalked a few of those up this week.
Awesome. So this week's theme, it's a director based. Kathryn Bigelow. She's been making movies since the 80s out here. She kind of takes her times with her films. If you look into her filmography, it's like some of them 6 years apart, even 8 years apart. And we chose this because House of Dynamite came out a week and a half ago, a nuclear scenario based film, not necessarily war, but I would count it as like a nuclear war starting kind of film. We also chose Hurt Locker, which is like she won Best Picture for that film, based off of the Iraq War, loosely based off the Iraq War. We can get into that once we get into. But Kathryn Bigelow herself, Academy really recognizes her films starting in the 2000s as she gets nominated for many things. She's a little bit older in her days now, and a lot of people think House of Dynamite is probably her last film itself, and as well as Zero Dark 30 is one of her also big films, capturing and the killing of Osama bin Laden. Probably one of my favorite intelligence-based films where they really just dive deep into how they actually found him itself. She was married to James Cameron for 2 years, which I thought was also interesting. 2 crazy directors. Yeah. But yeah, I really resonated with her, a lot of her films. She also did Point Break, which was based off of a lot of her recent filmography. That was kind of a wild film that she started earlier. You guys have anything to say about Kathryn Bigelow?
yeah, that is very interesting that she was married to James Cameron, especially, they're both pretty big directors.
Yeah. Yeah. They
Yeah,
wrote.
for me, I didn't realize I'm not really good at following directors per se. So, yeah, I've seen quite a bit. The Point Break I really liked. The Hurt Locker I really liked when it came out. Zero Dark 30, I agree. I mean, really good. I thought a lot of accuracy and a lot of drama that I thought they brought to it. So, Strange Days. So, yeah, I didn't realize I'd already seen some of the body of her work, but now it sort of got me interested in seeing some of the other ones that she's done.
Yeah. Yeah. She seems to put a lot of effort into like research into what she does as far as like what message she's trying to point across. And specifically with Point Break, she also wrote that with James Cameron, and then they got divorced a year later. So I wonder what that had to do with anything. But yeah. So we'll start off with Hurt Locker itself. Justin, if you want to take the realm.
Yeah. So Hurt Locker, I think you were kind of alluding to it earlier. Obviously, it's loosely based on the war in Iraq, not based on a true story, but is telling the story of, the bomb team, and kind of what they had to go through in Iraq. I did read up a little bit about the movie, and a lot of different people who were over there said it was pretty accurate, to what was going on at the time. So obviously, like I was saying, it's about the bomb team, and it kind of follows them. Obviously, the main character is Jeremy Renner's character, William James, and he kind of pushes the limits on like safety protocols and has very reckless behavior. And Anthony Mackie and Brian, I'm going to butcher this last name, Brian Garrity. They kind of just follow in his footsteps, but are oftentimes alarmed by his, adrenaline junkie methods. And I gave the plot an 8 overall. I thought it was pretty good. And throughout the movie, it was intense with a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah, I really like the plot and how it goes into this. Now, talking about accuracy, what to really get into, I don't think she's trying to go after an accurate Iraqi war film. I think she's going after a depiction of like how addicting that war can feel, and like that kind of violence and cowboy nature. I would count this as like a cowboy war film because Jeremy Renner is just straight up a cowboy, but set in but instead he's just defusing bombs instead of killing outlaws. So I think that's a interesting way to look at it, but also a lot of people that in the EOD community talk about how that kind of lifestyle and that kind of actual like diffusing bombs, that's not how it actually works at all. But also like if you did perform that kind of style, you don't survive another week. You don't survive past a week if you try to do that kind of stuff. But I think overall, like the whole setup of it was really well done, and how he isn't really like a humanized character until around that one little boy, which I thought was also interesting.
Yeah, I gave a solid 8. I really liked how they sort of brought you into their cycle. So you're starting these countdowns, right? Day 38, day 23, day 16. I sort of, you're getting in sort of their cycle with them, and like you're like, are we going to make it to the end? Are we going to actually survive this cycle? What I did like though is the sort of plot, I don't know, got rushed at the very end, because a lot of these movies, they'll counterbalance, going back home, what it's like after doing a tour like that. And trying to balance back, but it seemed like that was sort of rushed at the end. So I was sort of let down that we didn't get to see a little bit more of that plot at the very end of the counterbalance. And then they were right back out for the next cycle. Sort of let me down at the end. A solid, 80% of the movie was really good.
Yeah, I think the days counter really had a big impact towards the end when it reset just for him. And then it hits that like quote at the end about at the beginning about being addicted to that kind of nature. And it kind of just shows how he became addicted with it, just because it's like, I mean, it's whole Hurt Locker, right? It's like everything that could have hurt him, but didn't, because he made it not happen. And I also thought David Garrity's character was interesting because he was kind of obsessed with Jeremy Renner's character. Like just the whole movie, like really idolized him. But the moment that like he actually almost dies, all of that goes out the window and he just flicks him off. And I feel like that was a really like cool, impactful scene for like the end of his characters in the movie, of just like flicking him off and being like, screw you. Like, you're the reason why I got this hurt anyways.
I think kind of going into that too, like we're made to believe that he's the one with, all the mental health needs. He's seeing that doctor every day, but clearly Jeremy Renner is the one that needs the help the most. And it just kind of goes overlooked. Yeah, kind of getting into that. For characters, I gave it a 7. Obviously, it really closely follows the team of 3. Shout out to Guy Pearce being in the movie for 2 minutes. I was like, yeah, he's done. But the characters are really well done overall. Kind of like Ty said, I wish they would have fleshed out the ending for Jeremy Renner a little more. But other than that, they were pretty great all around.
Yeah. Sanborn as a character itself, I thought was also really interesting, how he was really strict to rules and all that stuff. He comes from an intelligence background, but then he also is like a sharpshooter. Like the sniping scene is a really like high tension scene itself, but then he just takes over for these contractors, and then just like that moving headshot as an intelligence background was kind of crazy for me. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, I gave a solid 9. I really liked the character development, especially as they're going through mission after mission. You think it gets repetitive, but every mission became some complexity where I thought the characters really drew out. Will, very complex. Jeremy's role, very complex role, and so trying to understand sort of the, cowboyish. Like you said, Sanborn really had some issues with those cowboyish traits, but you got the sort of, I think he referenced 800 some devices. After that, so many, you're going to have your own way of doing things. And so I really like how the movie sort of developed that and I don't know, sort of understood where he's coming from. And so
Yeah.
I really enjoyed to get to know that character and really see it. But again, I didn't like how it was sort of rushed at the very end because I would like to see a little bit more of that. I like seeing how they react going back home, right? And that's struggling through that. I just wish we saw that character a little bit more
Yeah.
on the tail end.
I think that they do an interesting way of like demonstrating officers in this movie, which of like they don't actually know like how to do the jobs itself and or like hyping up people. So for example, you talk about like how he said like he did 800 and something bomb defusals. I took that as like he just threw out a number because the colonel was kind of just like hyping him up and just being just, I don't know, not understanding the situation really at all and just being like, man, you're a wild man. You're a wild man. And then he's just like, how many have you done? How many have you done? And he's like, sir. And then he's like, how many? Just tell, that's an order. And then he's like, okay, I'll give you a number, man. Like kind of F off. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, we didn't really get to understand Reed's character at all because it was just sort of a, couple of spotlights because I didn't know if he was trying to make fun of him or he was really, I didn't know that
he seemed like
character
a
enough
war
to know
hungry.
whether or not he was just making fun of him or if he was actually just legitimately like impressed.
I think he's impressed, but also he's just like like he's playing a war hungry kind of colonel in this situation to where he just wants people that are just killers kind of thing. Just like go to it, takes nothing and just goes for it all. And also like an introduction to his character is him, like a guy gets shot and then he's like, well, if he's not going to make it, just kill him, which like you can't do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, this isn't like Vietnam or World War I days. Like you can't really do that. So it's just like introduction to him as like a officer. I thought was also interesting. And then because the other big officer role that we have in this is like the chaplain. And then you see how he's like, oh yeah, I'm from like Yale and all this background, but let me come out for a day. And then he comes out for a day.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to control himself in that kind of environment, obviously, and then it kills him.
Yeah, one thing I really enjoyed about this movie too was the cinematography. I gave it an 8. I thought the use of like handheld camera style filming was so well done. And I read a little bit about it. They used like 4 different cameras at a time using ASA film from what I researched and kind of merged it all together and it gave it that really like grimy look, the grainy film style. I thought that was pretty excellent and a great use of it in that setting.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting whenever most Afghanistan and Iraq war films have that grainy style, which I think really depicts like how the war was itself and how people like you look at Jarhead, Black Hawk Down, not Black Hawk Down, Lone Survivor is another good example of very grainy type of style. Warfare, the most recent one that just came out. So I always think it's interesting how different wars are depicted with different types of like cinematography styles.
Yeah, I gave it a solid 9. I really like that. Again, I'm a big documentary fan, so I really like that style of like you're almost there with them.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how they sort of showed the Iraqi faces because a lot of these like the war they focus so much on the characters and don't really do much for the environment around them. So we liked them even showing bags go, sort of winds taking them across the street, just give you sort of the almost taste and feel of being on the streets in Iraq. So I really like that style.
Yeah, it kind of humanizes them too, because a lot of films, I think they do it the wrong way of not showing really any of their faces. For example, he doesn't have a name in there, but the same video store clerk keeps showing up and then they let him through security one time because they're like, oh, he's just going to work. It's just a normal day. But then he's the one that ends up setting off the bomb. It's just like you're following him throughout the movie as like such a minor character. But also like diving deep into like the Iraqi war itself is like that. First, Americans weren't winning over people over there because they were scared themselves. Like these military guys, they're all scared. But every time that they're interacting with these Iraqis, they're showing guns at them. It's like, how do you expect people to respect you or really care or you win them over if you're constantly just having guns pointed at them? So I thought that was also an interesting way to like within their cinematography showing that without like making it a focal point of the movie.
And then getting into the dialogue, I gave it a 7. My favorite quote was actually the one at the beginning. I know that's not technically dialogue, but you alluded to it earlier. It was the rush of battle is often a potent and lethal addiction, for war is a drug. I thought that character was perfect, and obviously it perfectly described William James as a character.
Yeah, like he had a kid back home and a wife, and he like only talks. There's only one scene that he ever talks about them. And then he's like really caring about this boy throughout the movie. And that's really why he makes like a really stupid mistake and does some crazy stuff towards the back half of the film. But then it's pretty known or like pretty part of his character is that he's not the best father. Yeah, he cares so much about this little boy. So it's kind of like a compensation factor, I feel like, as him.
Yeah, I gave it a solid 8. I thought it was typical military type speak, very short and to the point, right? Not a lot of, depth to their conversations, but that's sort of military-ish style anyways. You don't really, especially when you're going out and doing missions and stuff, it's a lot of ribbing and, but yeah, I gave it a solid 8.
And I think there's something to that too, like with the short dialogue and everything like that, you have to use a lot of body language and stuff to kind of make assumptions for yourself. I think to this scene in the desert, the sniper shootout was, perfect with that. Like when he asked for the juice, you thought he was going to drink it and then he hands it to Sanborn. Not much was said there, but you take that he does care about his team for the first time. You kind of see that.
Yeah. That scene is really well done because like you bring in Ralph Fiennes, so like going into like kind of the acting part, but a lot of the 3 main actors, this is before they get big and become into Marvel movies and all this stuff. This is before Jeremy Renner does the Jason Bourne movie. So they're really unknown. And then you bring in Ralph Fiennes, who's like kind of a big actor at this point. Like he's Voldemort, he's done a bunch of things, Schindler's List. And then you pretty much kill him off within like 10 minutes. And you're like, oh, wow. So I thought that was all like that dialogue between them and them as just contractors. I thought was also really interesting.
And then getting into set design, I gave it an 8. It was filmed in Jordan and Kuwait, and I think it, felt really realistic in the sense that everything was desert. Especially like the scene we were just talking about, it felt very, eerie out there. It felt open and no hill or anything like that actually was covering you. It just felt like they were stranded out in the open. And also, even on the base and around the city points in Iraq, it felt like supplies were limited. It felt like everything was kind of jerry-rigged together, going into the bombs, but also just everything around them.
Yeah. It's crazy that it was set like right across from the Iraqi border, and they literally couldn't guarantee their safety against Iraqi insurgents, but they still were continuing to film, which is like very un-Hollywood, because most Hollywood people would be like, oh, heck no, I'm not doing that. But Jeremy Renner himself is known for just doing some crazy stuff. So I'm not that surprised about him doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I really like the set design. I gave it a 9. I really thought it was realistic where I felt like, it's true base ops where a lot of time some of these war type things, they're doing it somewhere in the U.S. or something. You can clearly tell with they're sort of skimming. But to your point, Tyler, I thought, I think they went out of their way to make as realistic as possible. So I really liked where they set the scenes and where they set the especially the one out in the sort of desert.
Yeah.
I thought they did that one really well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're the only one that's been out in the Middle East, so you probably know better than us what it actually looks like out there.
And then for acting, I gave it a 8. I think Jeremy Renner and Anthony Mackie stood out the most, but also Brian, I'm going to butcher it again. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Garrity. Yeah.
He was also great. I think they're, like we were talking about with the limited dialogue, I think they perfectly portrayed their internal struggles. And especially against one another, it was very intense. I think back to that scene where they're kind of horseplaying around in the barracks, it looked like. That was a very tense scene, and kind of all of their internal struggles all came out at once. And yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I really like Jeremy Renner in this, but also he's like probably one of my favorite actors just because everything he's in, I really like Wind River, Arrival, and even the Marvel movies. Sometimes he outacts other people in those movies itself. So I think this was a good like shout out for like him and Anthony Mackie before they kind of go more pop culture realms and start doing those type of movies.
Yeah, I really like the acting. 9.5 from me. I'm huge Jeremy Renner fan, huge Anthony Mackie as well. Those two guys really, I think, really did an outstanding job for the characters in this movie, and so that to me goes to the credit to the actors. And so I really got into that Will's mind sometimes of like, why is he doing this? But after you've been on so many missions, you can feel the addiction, I guess. Sort
Yeah.
of what they're going after. We'll talk about in a bit, but so yeah, I really liked the acting. I thought they did an outstanding job.
And then, yeah, kind of following up with that, I think a big part of the characters and the acting as well was Kathryn Bigelow as the director. I give it an 8. Obviously, like, well known for a lot of war movies. This was right up her alley, and I think it was well done and well portrayed as a story overall.
Yeah, I think what she was going with was not like an accurate EOD movie of being like, oh, this is what they do every day, but rather trying to depict like the Iraqi war all within one film. For example, like EOD people, they're not going to go out there and pull security to a bunch of contractors that have guns out. Like that's not their job. But they wanted to depict like a certain type of scene kind of accumulating because they would send out patrols to do that kind of stuff. I'm probably not the EOD team, but still, I think what she was trying to achieve was really well done and trying to accumulate everything. And like some cool parts that you won't really notice until you really look into it was, for example, like EOD, like while they're doing the thing, you're like, oh, are they just there by themselves? That's what it feels like. But then they pull around the corner and you could see people pulling security for miles, miles across from that one center location, which I thought was really well done because that is how it works. I mean, you have to clear out the area first, but this is where people live. You can't clear out apartments. So you're just going to constantly have people looking over the whole time.
Yeah, I gave it a solid 8. Again, I don't think we needed multiple scenes at home, but I think an additional one to just him cleaning out the gutters. I thought, a little bit more complexity with some kind of family engagement, at least maybe one more scene just to show some of that complexity back home. How does he deal with that? So I thought the director cut us a little bit short on that. And so I dinged a little bit, but still solid throughout the movie. I just thought the director could have added a little bit more of that home base complexity to the character.
Yeah, I think one thing with that maybe like some people could take away is that maybe he just didn't care about it at all, and that's why they didn't show anything. He was so addicted to being out there and doing that. It was just like when he was home, it was like a blink of an eye. He had already made up his mind. I'm going back. That's what I kind of pulled from it. But again, I would like to see a little bit more too. I'd like to see him struggling with being home and dealing with that stuff. And then for soundtrack, I gave it a 6. I said it was fine at best. Nothing in particular stood out. They used the music to build up suspense and, tight scenes, dramatic scenes. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah. I don't think it's anything crazy. It is pretty cool, like hearing the sound mixing with like, especially the opening scene with like the ground going up, a sniper scene where the bullets like dropping down. Like it's more in the cinematography itself, but adding the sound to it, I thought was pretty cool.
I gave it a 7. I was a little bit confused. They had music going while some of the shooting scenes, so it got a little busy for me. So when you have shooting scenes, they're sort of self-sustaining, right? You don't need a lot more than bullets flying around. It's like, why do we got music going on? So I don't know. It's a little confusing sometimes, like too much noise going on for me anyways.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then for theme, I gave it a 9. I thought, obviously, we'll get it more into war movies, but war is such a interesting way to pull out the deepest themes out of characters. So obviously we have like the psychological toll of warfare. And then, we kind of talked about with Jeremy Renner's character, the addiction to combat and the adrenaline rush that, one may get from that. And then we were talking about too, like the tension between war and also the monotony of civilian life and kind of just the balance of those two for people who have been and people who are over there.
Yeah. I think, I really like the theme for this. I gave it a 10 because this is like the only war movie I could think of where they really get into like, if it can become addicting for someone. how the Iraqi war itself, how well it accumulates like it all together. I don't think a lot of newer movies that try to depict those wars really do well. For example, American Sniper, I think, does a really poor job about it. Where like American Sniper, they kill the final person in that one, right? And then it acts like the war is just over just because they killed one sniper. While this film, they kill people and they get stuff completed, but it seems like it's just everlasting. It's like, for example, those contractors, when they capture those two people and they're like, oh, these people are really important. And then they just kill them. But like the war just keeps going. And I think that's more realistic with how it actually is than what some other Iraqi war films like to go into.
Yeah, I gave 9.5. I was really pleased with how they sort of sold that sort of addiction to the sort of theater type things, but also I thought there was a lot of mini plots in there too, right? Sort of heroism versus self-destruction. You had sort of the countdown for each person of going through their cycle. I mean, you had some mini plots going on as well, which I really liked as far as there was teammate bonding things, hitting each other in the dorm room. You know, how do you build teams? It's strange in the military sometimes from an outsider perspective, but I just thought it was really cool how they threw in some sort of subplots throughout the movie as well.
Yeah, that's like my favorite part of war films and military films itself is like the camaraderie parts, like showing the realism of like who these people actually are when they try to let loose. Like they just had like a super intense scene where they could have died. They all could have died, gotten shot out, but then they didn't because of Sanborn pretty much. And then they wanted to celebrate a little bit after, but then you kind of see that crazy side of Jeremy Renner's character just come out even in like a relaxed time and a relaxed environment.
And then getting into editing, I gave it a 9. It actually won an Oscar for its editing. The movie was super well edited. I think the slow cuts to build, character tension, especially in intense scenes, was really cool just to help build up their internal battles too. I think the scene where Jeremy Renner's character was, looking at that kid cut open, that was pretty intense, and they were jumping back and forth to outside with Sanborn. But I think overall it just mirrored a really chaotic and unpredictable nature of war.
Yeah, the editing was really well done. I don't feel like any scenes were too drawn out or cut too short. I thought there was just really good cut scenes, and then cutting in between like the dropping of the bullet right to like the person actually getting shot like right away. I thought that was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, same here. I gave 9.5. I thought it was really crisp between the scenes and cutting over to people and cutting over to, again, this to of Iraqis. Well, they got a mission going on. There's people just sitting on the balcony, and that's what you'll see, out there. That's their neighborhood, right? And that's what they sort of became norm to, is just military folks coming through their neighborhoods. And so I really like that sort of cutting back, that sort of dynamic of the mission versus what's going on in sort of in their minds in any ways. So I thought it was really neat the way they edited that back and forth throughout the scenes.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, so overall, I gave the movie a 7.8 out of 10 or 78. I think it was pretty great all around. It's a very intense story, like I was talking about with war. You can bring out some really deep themes out of characters, and I think that was done super well here.
Yeah, I gave it a 8.6 or 86 out of 100, so 8.6 out of 10. I really like it. I think it's really well done. Probably one of my more favorite like films when I was first getting into like really trying to dive deep into films. This was like one of the first ones that I really watched. It was like, it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's once we get into the draft, we'll see if it gets taken, but I'd be surprised if it didn't.
Yeah, I gave it a solid 8.5. I thought it's a really good, well done movie. I've seen a lot of war movies. It's one of the better ones. And so, especially the character development and the plot and the theme. So, really solid movie.
Yeah, it won Best Picture in 2008 for the big year. This is the year that it won over Inglourious Bastards, and as well as Avatar and The Blind Side. A lot of people that year don't agree with that decision. A lot of people think Inglourious Bastards probably should have won, but who's to say? I think they're both great films. Kathryn Bigelow also won Best Director over Quentin Tarantino that year. Another questionable decision, but I thought it was a good overall movie. What was your guys' favorite scene?
Go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, for me, I think it was, let's see, I have a couple of them really. I'd say probably my most favorite is when he's coming back after one of the kids got shot because he was being taken away, and he came back to the dorm. I think that's when he realized, like, maybe messed up,
Yeah.
going out into the town in full gear in the shower. I think all this sort of, adrenaline has come off by then. And he's like, oh shit, I probably went too far. So just realization and breaking down in the shower, exposing him, that character. You didn't see that side, right? It's just cowboy,
Yeah.
cowboy, cowboy. And all of a sudden it's like realization, like, okay, there is a price to pay when I do these cowboy things. Probably my favorite scene.
And I think too, like the blood washing off on him in the shower was such like a metaphor for him realizing like, I need to get rid of some of that off of me because I can't keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my favorite scene was one of the first scenes with him where he's like diffusing the bomb and then he pulls it up and it's like 8 of them around him. And like the drawn out with like the music part of that with like the eerie, like the needle drop. I was like, oh, wow, we're getting into it. Cause you just said Guy Pearce just died from like a similar scenario. The guy didn't pull the trigger in time. And you get to him and he seems a lot more less careless. But then he doesn't even look like he's panicking, where a lot of people, Guy Pearce, he started panicking and you could tell like in his eyes, you could just tell he's as relaxed as it ever could be. Well, like everyone else in that scenario would probably like poop their pants.
I think mine was the desert scene, specifically the sniper battle, and just portraying how long they had to sit there after, just kind of waiting because you don't know what's in there. They could be doing the same thing and you not even see them, just sitting there waiting. Although not much dialogue was said, I think that was such an intense team bonding exercise for them and really brought them a lot closer together.
Yeah, like Garrity's like character when he unloads a whole clip into that guy behind them. But then Renner's like, good. He didn't even have to check, but he's just like, good. You finally pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I thought that I really liked that scene as well. That's why had a few of them. And Justin, the one where he was like, "Hey, I see somebody on the hill." He's like, "What do I do?" And he's like, "You do what you're gonna do." And so it's almost like a graduating moment for that kid. Is like, "Oh yeah, I guess I can think for my own."
Yeah, awesome. Cool. So we'll get into that. Was Kathryn Bigelow's probably biggest film, most like successful film, I would say, like Academy wise and even like grossing wise, because it ended up making. Let me check real quick. I think it made like about 300 million at the box office, which is for this kind of film is pretty good. Oh no, it actually didn't make that much. It made 50 million. For some reason, I thought it made more. Very successful film for her that kind of set up Zero Dark 30 as well. Also probably her 2 biggest and Point Break, the 3 biggest films for her. And now getting into her newest film, House of Dynamite. It just came out on Netflix a week and a half ago. It's basically set as a story of a ICBM or a nuke has been launched from a destination that they don't know because the satellite didn't pick it up, and how they would react in that time, how the White House would. And it kind of gets a character standpoint from a bunch of different people. And it has 3 different like storylines kind of split into like thirds of the film. The first one, kind of setting it up, but it keeps revolving around the same timeline. So it doesn't progress any of like the plot points itself. And that's why I gave it a 4 out of 10 on plot, because personally, I understand like what they're trying to do is like giving more context to it. And I think the first 2 acts do a really well job of that. I think the second one adds a lot more background, understanding the situation. The first one does really well setting it up. The third one is my biggest problem with the film is it leads up to this, right? And you're not really progressing anything. And then the third one, there's no stance on what's going to happen. There's no, like, this is a movie at the end of the day. I know you don't want to make, maybe she doesn't want to make like a big political standpoint or anything, but at the end of the day, this is a movie. You got to have some kind of climax or some kind of actual thing that happens. And for me, I think it's just either lazy or it's just not well done at all for the last part.
Yeah, I think the plot of this movie was such a good idea in theory, right? Because you want to display to people that really, at the end of the day, we're 30 minutes away from nuclear war at any time. And it's very interesting to be able to do that. But I don't like the way that it was structured and done, because by the second act, we already know what happens and we don't really, the only thing we have to gain is just different perspective. We don't have any actual stakes involved anymore. And maybe it's just me as the viewer, but I started just feeling like bored in the repetition. I get what you're trying to do and tell the different stories. I look to like somebody like Quentin Tarantino, who kind of takes Hollywood's structure of how a movie should be made and throws it out the window sometimes. think this tried to do that. It just kind of fell flat.
Yeah, like Christopher Nolan does it all the time too. And
Yeah.
but they still progress the story. This
Yeah.
just doesn't progress the story, like really for me at all.
Yeah, I'm probably going to echo a lot of your guys' comments. I gave it a 5. I was really disappointed when the first went through. Sort of really brought me into the timeline. I was like, oh, just that impact. We're going to pivot and tell the story from a different optic. And I almost got frustrated because we had bad comms all over the place on the first one,
Yeah.
and we had to hear the same thing. It got so frustrating. It's like, okay, we understand the NSA has a bad cell phone connection. We don't need to keep elaborating on that. But it had me a little bit of hook at the very end of the second, where the sec death sort of walks off. I'm like, ooh, okay, well, threw a little jolt at me. I'm like, I actually stopped it and realized, I'm like, did he literally like walk off the roof?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was getting excited for the third, and I was like, but then I don't know, just the plot fell apart in the third. I was like, wow, this is so disappointing. Because I really like, I'm going to butcher his name, but it is
Idris Elba.
Yeah. I love him, everything he does, but I was just like, wow, they just really cheated him in the plot. And that third just made it like a throwaway character, plot wise. And so I think they could have done so much. I just think they lost a lot of opportunity in that third one because, again, I was getting frustrated, but then they got me a hook at the very end of the second, and I was like, ooh, now I'm excited now for the third. But I walked away very, very disappointed with the plot.
Something to consider, like, I don't know, I just thought of this. What if we went back and watched it like 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3? Would we feel any differently about it? I don't know. Maybe I'll have to go back and try that. But because the beginning had everybody so interested, and this is what I've been reading a lot of reviews about too. And then the repetitiveness just kills everything. So I'd be curious to see like how, if we watched them separately or in different order, how that would portray the movie too.
Yeah. Well, the second act for me, like, I think it slightly progresses the plot with giving more background to like what the situation actually is. Because the first one just tells you like very subliminally, like a nuke's coming to Chicago. The second one gives you more background of like why it failed, what the situation is, what we have to do to react. And you got kind of like a very like violent friendly, I would say, general who would say we need to respond, while you have the NSA guy saying, we don't know the whole situation. You don't want to start a nuclear war based off of one thing, one country, which they keep preluding that it's maybe North Korea throughout the film. I think the third act is just so poorly done. And I don't know if it's the writing. I think it's the writing. And I also, Idris Elba, again, I think he's a really charming actor himself, really like convincing actor. I don't know. This performance seems so dry and so like, just doesn't seem like he's putting in any effort. I don't know what it is. It's like, this is the second movie this year where he's like a head of a state. He has a movie with John Cena where he's the head of like Great Britain. And I would say he's playing the same as that character, just without an accent in this one. And I'm like, you're the president of the United States. And I'm like, you're telling me that he's just going to act like an idiot? Like, I'm sorry, but like, no, I don't think so.
I think Angel Reese was killing the vibe in the room too.
Like, actually pissed me off. Like, just because I was like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we trying to like set here? And then he has no like charisma or anything in front of like a whole group of people, like trying to do this scenario. And then like the worst jump shot of any American I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but like, how do you put yourself in that scenario and then have like the ugliest jump shot? Like, no. So I don't know. The whole final act, like I watched it on a plane. And it just really like pissed me off.
Yeah, the third, I mean, it was frustrating on the comms, but even the third is like, you even got poor comms with your fancy satellite, which is crystal clear and normal with your wife out in a safari. It's like, what are we doing? Like bad comms everywhere. It's like, the plot just fell apart for me in the third. I mean, just like, it was horrible.
Yeah, getting into characters, I gave it a 6 out of 10, mainly because I think the first act and people in the second act, really well done characters. I think just maybe the actors themselves. Rebecca Ferguson, even though I think she was really convincing character, you could really feel like the dread in like her. And then the general, Tracy Letts, he's done Better Call Saul. I thought he was really well done, really. But one thing I want to point out, and maybe this goes right into acting itself, is why are we casting British people playing American roles? I'm sorry, but like I think we have enough American actors that we can get enough American actors to pull out and be American like people. I don't know. It's the same with British people. Like the Americans playing British roles. I was like, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of people out there that you can give shine out to. So yeah.
I want to shout out like the Alaska crew because I think that was the most emotion throughout the whole movie. Was anytime it went to them, I was like, Jesus, these guys are really just kids in the military and they are so scared right now because if they don't do this, it's done.
Yeah. You have a 30-year-old that's in charge of trying to deter or trying to hit a bullet with a bullet. And like, that is super realistic. Like a captain, a major, they're in their 30s, young 30s, in charge of like an entire nation of trying to defend. So if feeling the dread in them, and then like the moment it fails and they're trying to have comms with each other, but then it's just dead silent because what are you even supposed to say at that point? Like you failed. Yeah. That is a good shout out though.
Yeah, I gave it a 6. I would have given less, but for those, unless it was for the Alaskan crew, because to me they saved the movie. To be honest with you, just because through every session, it was whenever you hear them, you'd hear that tension. You could just feel, like, man, did they screw up? And you hear them the line of, we did everything right. We did everything right. You heard that numerous times throughout each of the segments. I was like, to me, they almost saved the movie just because you're right, Justin. You could just tell it flipped from, ribboning each other, having a bad day, one of them, to, oh shit, it's game on and we got to get this right. And everybody double checking and everybody sort of, having each other's back. To me, that saves the movie because everybody else, the characters, I don't know, were they told to act dumb as hell? I mean,
Yeah.
if they were told that, then they all did a great job.
Yeah.
I don't.
It seems like I get what she's trying to go after. Like it could happen any day. Could happen on an off day for people. Not the right people are in jobs at that certain place. But at the end of the day, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just wrong and like the government people won't act this way. But I have a feeling that they would be acting a lot more professional and be a lot more to the point than what they depict in this film. And yeah.
I think she was really trying to hammer in the point that at the end of the day, like regardless of job title status, like they're people too. But it just felt like you kept redoing it with the same people over and over. And that's what made them feel like idiots. Like each of these characters should have had one scene where they were like calling their husband, calling their wife. Like that was like their personable scene to make them a human too. It just kept repeating though. And I just, that's where they really started to feel stupid.
Yeah. Now getting into cinematography, this I did give it 8 out of 10. I thought it was really well shot, really cool scenes for the Alaskan scene itself. I think really cool to just show like it's just out there in Alaska. And then like undisclosed location kind of scenes, and then off it itself was really well shot. I haven't been there, but like if I had to take a guess, it's probably what the room actually looks like. So I thought overall the cinematography was pretty well done and cutting in between with what they could with what the story was itself.
No, I agree. I think obviously if you kind of merged all three of these, mini movies together, I'd say you would have had way too many cuts. You would have had way too much jumping around. And I think that would have lost people. But again, spreading it out so wide too, I think also lost people. So something in the middle might have been a little bit better for me. But I understand the use of cuts and everything kind of had to be done that way for how broad the scope was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I gave it a 7. I thought they set the scenes really well where they were, so you didn't get lost in movies. They just cut to someplace, you don't know where the heck they are. And so I really like how they sort of set the stage for each of the venues. And one little criticism that they were tight sometimes when they were out. Sometimes I was, are you playing tight or are you playing out? I mean, a couple of times there, I was like, I always look for consistency anyway, so I'm getting comfortable throughout the movies. I didn't like how sometimes they cut on somebody, especially the NSA guy. They love to cut on his face, and the other people they're showing the room. So I don't know, just confusing sometimes how they're cutting out, but still solid. I thought they really did a good job of always showing where they were and depicting what I think was pretty accurate of where locations are.
Getting into dialogue, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Again, it's more so like the third act. I feel like of just adding to like really unrealistic dialogue, in my opinion. I just don't know what they were getting into. I don't want to like crap on the third act too much because I think we already done it enough, but I feel like that was it really lacked and kind of just took away the kind of humanizing factor they did in the first two of like of a president that just I don't know what kind of president they're trying to go after, but it just wasn't very convincing. And the dialogue just did not seem very realistic. Like you're telling me in that scenario, he has no idea how it's ran. I have a hard time believing that he has no idea what in that scenario what it would look like.
Yeah, I think they were trying to display like, politicians and these people that we vote in are definitely not as educated as the people we've seen in the prior ones who have really worked to get up to the positions they're in. But yeah, like you said, they would have to know something, and that just kind of fell flat.
There is one scene like the Gettysburg like reenactment scene. I get what she's trying to do is like, oh, we're like shout out to like how we started kind of thing with Gettysburg. Yeah, it was so they did what's her name though? The actress, they did her so dirty. That is such a badly written setup scene for her. Greta Lee, who's such a great actress, and you just set her up so badly to just I don't know what they were trying to give her in that situation, but it's just really poorly written.
Yeah, I gave it a 5. I didn't think it was very repetitive. It was almost like we got to hear the same discussion just from different vantage points. To me, not really memorable sort of lines. A lot of movies, great movies, anyways. You come out with several different really good lines that you sort of remember the movie from. Other than we did everything right. I don't know if there's any other truly really memorable lines throughout this movie that I like. Oh yeah, I love that scene and that phrase or that comment he or she made. And the comms are just I think very distracting. Maybe that to me sort of drove down against the dialogue just because I don't know the first one I couldn't even hear the president. I mean I had to like turn up the volume to hear anything he was saying because the comms are so bad. It's like I get it, it can happen at any point. A comm here or there isn't going to be the perfect, but it's usually not that bad.
Yeah.
Where every comm is bad.
Yeah. Like if you're going to get different perspectives from a conversation, you got to have it going all at the same time. If you want to add that chaotic factor, which I think she was trying to do, but like you got to have it consistent throughout the movie of how much you're going to show from the communications factor.
Yeah.
Getting into acting, I gave it a 6 out of 10 because there are some shout outs that I think were really well done. Anthony Ramos, I thought he did pretty good as like the major in Alaska. Tracy Letts as the general, I thought he was really well done. I mean, even Gabriel Basso, the guy that plays the NSA character, and Rebecca Ferguson, I think they were really good. I just think Idris Elba, the Secretary of Defense guy, Greta Lee, the lieutenant guy that's with the president, I think those 4 not very well done acting scenes. I don't know if it's what they wrote for them, but I just think it was really poor.
Yeah, I agree. I think like what you were saying, Anthony Ramos really killed it. You felt the human side of what he had to do. And, he kind of seemed like a strict person, but at the end of the day, he cared about his team, and having to see them go through that was obviously killing him.
Yeah, I gave a 7, but again, I think that Alaska crew saved the movie. If it wasn't for them, I would probably rate it a lot lower just because I thought they did a really nice job showing. And the one actress, she does, I keep forgetting her name, but she did an awesome job as well in the White House Situation Room.
Rebecca Ferguson.
Yeah, Rebecca. I thought she did a really good job too. Idris, like I said, I really like his work, but I was really let down. I'm not sure if that's the director coming through or what, but I thought he let us down a little bit in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Getting into sound effects, I gave it a 7 out of 10 to where I think the sound definitely like added some tension to it. But again, talk about the communication styles. I feel like that was like a big letdown with the sound effects. Like sometimes it would outshine one over the other. But yeah, there's nothing too crazy to talk about with that one.
Yeah.
I'll just jump right to set design then. I gave set design a 8 out of 10, mainly because the first 2 scenes, I feel like it was really set up well. The Alaskan scene, the White House Situation Room, the vault, the Offutt Air Force Base, like that Situation Room with the Stratcom commander, even the SecDef's office. But then you get into like the final scene of like the plane, how you could just tell the plane was on a set because there is no like takeoff or landing. It just all of a sudden gets in the air. I don't know. I'm not a big plane guy, but I could tell you that's not how planes work. It's just like, you got to have like something, man. It's just too obvious of like of a set. I don't know, for me.
Yeah, I think the set design was fine at best. Some places look better than others, but the situation rooms were done really well, especially with it seemed like the whole time they were always just briefing the president. So kind of panning around the room and everything was cool to see different people's perspectives.
Yeah, I gave this 7. I thought it was, did its job. You like the White House. I mean, I think they did a really good job there, but then it seemed like they were in the car way too much. I think they could have built up some other sets a lot better than just driving. I don't know, it seemed like forever. But that third act, it was like he's in the car like half the time. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, folks, we can take them to other places than just the car.
Yeah. And then directing, even though she's probably one of my favorite actors with some of my favorite movies, I gave it a 5 out of 10. I think my biggest problem with her as the director during this movie is that she didn't take a stance. Like, she didn't make a decision. She gets the same as the president. It's a movie at the end of the day. You got to have some kind of climactic point. You can't just let it hang on the loose and hope that everyone's like, oh yeah, like what the final theme is at the end of the day is nukes are bad and nukes are scary. It's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, they're scary. Like, we get that. Like, make a stance of how do you think, based off of your research from this movie, how do you think that we would react? I think that would have been a way better stance than what it ended up being.
Yeah, even if you didn't want to decide on who sent it, that's fine with me, but at least decide what our response would actually be instead of cutting it short there.
Saying that we wouldn't
Yeah,
respond is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. It seemed like there's a lot of questionable, who's the bad guy. There's a lot of questions there. I get it. You're letting the viewer sort of decide some of this, but like you said, you don't want like 10 things that the viewer has to decide. It should be,
Yeah.
like you said, you make a judgment. It's X bad guy, and maybe there's some questions you get to pick the ending, but it seems like it was all over the place. Like, we got to pick who the bad guy is. We got to pick who the idiot is throughout the movie. We got to pick how it ends. I mean, we got to pick all kinds of things. And so as a viewer, you shouldn't have to work that much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then they just make a decision. Editing, I gave it a 5 out of 10. Same points I've been hitting. Just some of the last final plot points, even the second one, I would say a lot of the editing isn't done well. Maybe it's just because the first one is set up, so you don't really like notice the editing problems in that one as much. Like, if we reordered it, maybe we would more. But I feel like the first one was edited pretty well to like represent a good setup point, which is why it's so disappointing that it messes up later on.
Yeah, overall, as a movie, I know we keep talking about it, but to me, the nonlinear approach and jumping around kind of threw me for a loop. Like I said, I've seen movies do that really well before, but I think just not having any decision making, like you said, Tyler, you kind of have to take a stance, especially if you're going to do it non-linearly, to keep the viewer interested the whole movie.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, I gave it a 6. There were so many scenes. I mean, Safari, bad comms. I mean, I don't know why we're cutting to some of this stuff. It didn't add value, didn't add anything, didn't add any drama, didn't add, really anything as far as the final plot. So,
yeah. And then final thing is theme. I gave the theme an 8 out of 10, mainly because I think the premise itself is really interesting. And if it's done well, it could be a really well done movie if you take like a certain stance of how we respond. Yeah, I thought the theme overall, like story of it, of like how we are kind of a house of dynamite, how like one thing can really just set us off. At the end of the day, we are still like the world leader, and whatever decision we did make at that point would dictate the rest of like probably lifetime for a lot of people. Like, if we decided to react with a nuke, that sets off a whole nuclear war. If we just only condemn the country that we thought it was, which they keep preluding to thinking that it's North Korea in this film. Like, if you're going to have a whole cutout scene of a North Korean or specialist, I'm guessing that's who they were like going to blame at that point. So I think the theme itself was really interesting and could have been done a lot better, but I think the theme overall.
Yeah, I think like we'd mentioned that the theme of the movie is a really interesting idea. I know we're on, warfare this week, and this is what people think the future of warfare is going to look like. So really hammering in the idea that, in about 30 minutes, it could all just kick off any given day, any given time is interesting. I think just execution needs to be better.
Yeah, I gave it a 9. I mean, the theme, the premise of it, Yeah, we are 30 minutes away, and we're relying on political appointees in many regards to make a lot of these big decisions. And it could be the first week they're in the job. It could be, a year in the job. And institutions, it sort of tests that sort of institutions. I like the one line where the SecDef was talking about, this is what, $50 billion buys us a 50-50 coin flip on our success rate, which is probably true in some regards. And so the premise of it, I really like. It's just the execution side of this thing just fell apart, but really like the idea of, testing it out and getting people's thoughts on how reliant we are on people, institutions, comms, I guess.
Yeah. It felt like the compartmentalization also killed a lot of necessary time. And I think it was trying to get at that too. Like, we should probably just, have one person whose job it is to make that call.
Yeah. Which is like interesting because you had like the Department of Homeland Defense was created because of how we responded to 9/11 in the first place, about how compartmentalized and people couldn't communicate with each other. And it's always like, at the end of the day, they really hit on it. It's like, it's only been tests that we've been doing. It's only been tests. It's never actually been, and that's like almost all of these countries. It's not just us. Almost every country, they just do these tests, especially the big ones. Like, how about us and China and Russia? Russia's going through a war right now, but as far as those big three, like those kind of things, those are just tests. No one actually knows how it's going to perform in real time. I thought that was really interesting as well. Overall, I gave it a 6.2 out of 10 or 62 out of 100. I don't think this is a great film. I've watched over 50 films this year, and I ranked it right in the middle along with really crappy Netflix films. So I think with how big the budget was, such a good director who she's done some great films. So I was really disappointed. Probably came into this with really high expectations. Everyone was like, oh, this could be a Best Picture nominee. This better not be a Best Picture nominee. It better not even get close to the Oscars, in my opinion.
Yeah, I gave it a 6.8, but honestly, I would rank the first part a 10, the second part 5, and then the last part a 1. That's how this whole movie felt.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I gave it a 7 mainly because of that. To your point, Justin, I sort of the first act, I was all in, man. I was like you said, that by the end of that first act, I was like, and then the second one, I was like, oh, okay, I see where we're headed here. And so I was sort of starting to get frustrated, but then the SecDef walked off the roof. I'm like, oh, okay, got me hooked again. So that's why I elevated the second act a little bit. And then the third one, just -5, if I can give negative numbers.
Yeah. Really sad. Hopefully Idris Elba can make up for something in the future, because I think this is it could have been a career defining role for him if it was done well, but now it's just a really bad career defining role for a guy that's been kind of in a lot of goofy movies, and I would say in the last 5 years. So hopefully some director gives him a chance with an actually well-written script for his parts. But cool. All right. So now, after talking about these two films, we're going to do a draft, but this draft is going to be a war/military movie draft. Pretty much how we're going to base that off of, if we all agree that it's a war and military type of film, then it'll be okay to draft. Now, if we don't agree with it, we can have discussions about it. But I think there's plenty of movies to pick from that I don't think we'll have really that problem of deciding. So the categories for this draft are going to be Oscar winner. In the past, we've only done Oscar nominee. It has to have actually won an Oscar. Box office over 150 million. 20th century, so the film was made within the 1900s. 21st century, so from 2000 and beyond. And then a comedy. And then lastly, a wild card, because why not? Cool. So I'll do a random name generator to see who gets to go first, because it's just a regular snake style draft. Wow, finally I get to go first.
I was going to say, all the ones I've watched.
Look at that. I finally get to go first for once. And Dad, you get to go second, and Justin third. I was actually prepared to do the third pick, so cool. There's so many movies to choose from, so I'm really going after category basis, I think, first, that are a little tighter. And since I know I won't be able to pick in 5, I got to really make an interesting decision here. Well, I'm going to go with my highest rated war movie, which that being actually going to go with my second highest rated war movie, but I think this category isn't as deep. I'm going to go with Tropic Thunder, which crazy number one overall, but since we did comedy, I think this is like the comedy war movie. I don't think anything is really over this for me personally. This movie is hilarious. Funny concept of like, oh, we're going to make a war movie. And then it actually turns into like them trying to like fight their way out. But then Ben Stiller directs this movie, and he's also really good in this movie. It's crazy that he did both. And then he wrote the whole script himself. He's so talented because he also did, what's Severance as well. And he's also the director of that.
Yep.
Also, Tom Cruise's probably funniest role, maybe one of his best roles ever. It's just like, apparently, hearing back on this movie, a lot of people didn't even know that it was Tom Cruise when it first came out.
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea during the movie.
Yeah, that's how good he did it, and it doesn't even look like him.
But
Overall, I love Tropic Thunder. Robert Downey Jr. too. He was so in character. That was so funny. Yeah, Jack Black character. This is probably like some people's best roles. Like I think this is Jack Black's and Ben Stiller's like best roles as themselves. And then you have like Matthew McConaughey also in there. But all right, Dad, you get pick number 2.
All right, this is an easy one for me. I'm old school, so you guys, I don't know if you guys ever checked this one out. Stripes.
I haven't seen that.
It's a classic. It's got all the sort of who's who of comedy back then: Bill Murray, Harold Ramos, John Candy, Jim Belushi, and John Belushi's brother. So I mean, just it's a classic movie. There's still famous lines that today are resonate with the days of, but just sort of the comic of going through boot camp. There's a lot of fun scenes throughout and then they go on this weird going after Russians. It's just a really fun movie. And so I wasn't quite I would say Bill Murray fan before that, but after that I was all in on Bill Murray ever since then.
Yeah.
Because I really didn't understand his comedy at first. It was almost skittish, like very Saturday Night Live-ish, everything he was doing. But that, to me, he sort of got off his feet under him from a film perspective. And then I think he understood films after that because he got, I think, exponentially better. And so just love that movie. I crack up every time I watch it.
Yeah, I saw this on like top of the list when I looked up comedy war movies, but I had never seen it. So, but I definitely need to check it out.
I think I'm going to have to go comedy here too. I'm going to take one that probably would fit into a lot of different categories, but I'm going to put it in comedy. Obviously, like we talked about, it's pretty thin. I'm going to go in Glorious Bastards.
Yep.
Yeah.
I already
This is a great movie. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino. I actually just watched this a couple of weeks ago with Madison, just because she hadn't seen it before. And I forgot how funny it was. Obviously, very, very deep plot and everything that's going on. But it's just kind of Tarantino's way of telling a story from World War II, which is very interesting and very out there for sure. Don't watch it around kids or family members.
Yeah, a lot of you talk about memory, memory movies. There's a lot of memorable scenes, a lot of memorable. Yeah.
I mean, that movie isn't afraid to take a point. They just straight up kill Hitler at the end, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh, you made this deal for yourself, Christopher Waltz guy, Hans." And he's like, "But you won't ever forget that you were a Nazi." He's like, "I'll take that deal. Damn good deal."
Yeah, you never have to worry about Tarantino making choices. He will make choices.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I love Inglourious Bastards.
And then for my next pick, I'm going to go with Oscar winner, and I'm going to pick my favorite war movie of all time. It's going to be 1917. I specifically love this movie. This is one of the movies that kind of got me into cinematography as a whole. And this movie was, kind of edited together to look like 3 entire shots, the whole film, which was a very interesting way to kind of tell a story of a journey. And I can go back and watch this movie 10 times in a day, and I won't get sick of trying to find new things and new plot points in it. I really love this one.
Yeah. I remember watching it in theaters, and it was just really cool to see how it was shot. Totally. That continuous scene of like the battlefield scene of him running was really cool. Yeah, probably one of the more like popular and biggest, other than All Quiet on the Western Front. Like those two are like the 2 biggest World War I movies.
Yeah, when Tyler once saw, he really talked it up, and I was like, all right. Especially when I hear Oscars, these days I don't get a whole lot of excitement because I've been let down so many. But yeah, that movie does not let down, though. I mean, that is the way they portrayed it and the way they follow him throughout the movie, just first-rate movie.
And it's all British actors portraying British characters.
Yeah.
That's why it won. That's why it won right there.
I keep hammering home. Just let people play what country they're from. Now, if you're playing like some wild countries that clearly don't have as many actors as actresses, it makes sense. Have them play their own country. All right, Dad, you have your second choice.
So we have to now stick an Oscar, right? So
Oh, you can
No,
you can go
you
wherever you want.
Yeah, you can
Oh,
go
I can
any
go
Yeah,
wherever.
category. Yeah.
We just all did comedy first because it's definitely thin there.
Okay. I'll flip to the 150 million then. I took Saving Private Ryan. I thought it was just really drew on the emotional strings. I think it was really well done, executed. And like I said, I mean, it had me emotionally, pissed, happy, sad. Why are we going to go get this guy just because he has a bunch of brothers? To like, okay, I'm bought in. We got to go get this guy, and now we got him. And I mean, it's just like it really pulled me in for big films. Like, I don't know, the opposite end of the spectrum for me for these big, great films. Pearl Harbor, I thought it was too Hollywoodish. Everything was special lighting. To me, that was the opposite. Where this one really tried to stay true to the times and true to the story. Brought in sort of the, um, you know, homesteadness of the folks involved mixed with the complexity of war. So yeah, for big, great film making big money, I thought that's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. I mean, they had a warning scenes for World War II veterans that the opening scene, that it was too realistic for some people.
Yeah.
People had to like leave because they reminded them too much of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that happens, then the movie was pretty well made. They also were hiding that Matt Damon was Private Ryan up until like the film was actually released. So no one actually knew it was Matt Damon because this was like right after Good Will Hunting. So I
Yeah.
always think that's such an interesting opinion because they do the same with Interstellar. They
Yeah,
also hide the fact
I was
that
going to
Matt
say
Damon
we talked about it.
I don't know what it is about hiding Matt Damon being in films, but cool. Okay. So it's my pick now. I think what I'm going to go with in 20th century, there's like two big films that I would want to pick, but instead I'm going to go first with Full Metal Jacket in 20th century. I love Full Metal Jacket. It starts off hilarious. I mean, you got like a drill sergeant guy just getting into people, just letting them hear it, and Private Pile, and then it turns to like a really serious and dark film really quick. It's just so well done. It has such an interesting take on like the Vietnam War itself and what they were putting people through. There's so much you could say about Full Metal Jacket itself. Stanley Kubrick filmed it. Like,
Yeah. There are so many memorable scenes from that one as well, right? It's iconic at this point. Just the sort of drill sergeant. He became super famous after that movie. And so, yeah, a lot of complexities to that movie as well. The mental aspects and this fat dude who just can't, goes from everybody picking on him to everybody, like, what the hell?
yeah. Okay. And now getting into Oscar winner, I'm going to go with Apocalypse Now.
Damn it. I thought I was in the clear for that.
I really like Apocalypse Now. I watched it, I think 2 years ago for the first time. And it's just, I mean, it won best cinematography. That won an Oscar. And it's shot so beautifully. And there's like two different parts of the film. You got like the first part of him coming into it, just trying to find this guy. And then a moment that Marlon Brando is shown, he just takes over the movie. Like, is the most famous example of seeing an actor just take over a film just instantly. And Marlon Brando is like known for doing Godfather and this, but he's one of the top 5 best actors ever for a reason. And I feel like it'd be injustice to not pick Apocalypse Now at this point. Cool. So, Dad, it's your third pick.
My third pick, I'm going to stick with Oscars then, so no one takes this one. I doubt you guys are going to take this one. I doubt you guys have seen it. One of my favorite movies, Deer Hunter. Released in 78, 5 Oscars, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Film Editing, Sound, all the sort of who's who, Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, Meryl Streep, I mean, just cast of characters in there. And I can really relate. I have uncles that served in Vietnam. So the language, I really resonate with. I understand that sort of vocabulary they were using. And then the sort of the complexities of, things that obviously they needed to deal with, probably not in the most appropriate ways,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
of dealing with that sort of after war type things that you somehow, if you don't talk about it or they don't know how to talk about it right, and that's sort of the complexities of it. Just a great, great movie. I've seen it probably a dozen times, and it's number one on my list. It's a great movie.
Yeah. This is definitely on my list of something I need to watch just because, I mean, it's Robert De Niro before he became huge. He like had this and Taxi Driver in like back-to-back years. What a
Yeah.
crazy, and Raging Bull. Like what a crazy way to start a career. 3 just
Yep.
bangers. All right, Justin.
All right. Know what I'm taking. Just trying to figure out how to frame it here. I'm going to go box office over 150 mil. I'm going to take Hacksaw Ridge. I think this is a awesome movie. Obviously about like how the medic came to be. Obviously medics were around before, but how the modern day medic came to be. Obviously Andrew Garfield, I'm sure he won something for this movie. It was pretty great, and I'd say one of his most electric performances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Directed by Mel Gibson. Probably his best directed film itself. Really well done. Also like highlighting like the Pacific side of the war, which isn't always shown as much, I would say, compared to like the Eastern Front part of it. So always thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah. And then for 21st century, I'm going to take Fury. Another one, great movie with Brad Pitt, and the cast is just, nuts all around, but just a great story about a, tank crew and kind of their interaction with the war.
Yeah, I love that movie too.
Yeah, Brad Pitt kills it in that movie. And then you got like a crazy combination of other actors in that movie that it would make no sense coming into it. Be like a World War II movie with these guys, with Shia LaBeouf, the guy from Perks of Being a Wallflower, and Carlos Pena, and then John Bernthal. Like, all right. And then you watch and you're like, man, they all kill it. Like crazy underrated. Yeah.
Crazy underrated. Yeah. It's just weird how they just go wherever they want to go as a team.
Yeah.
It's just, they felt invincible, right? And then you're like almost shocked at the very end.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. That it's your fourth pick now.
I'm going to do 21st Century, Black Hawk Down. Great movie. Really pulls you into the story. You're just like, God, can we please get to him quicker? Just, I love the acting on that. I love the story. I love the plot. I love the theme because, yeah, you're going to have a bad day, and it's not as easy as everybody thinks when you have a bad day to get things back on track. And so it shows the complexity of what can go wrong, how everybody's trying to.
Yeah. Black Hawk Down. I really like that movie. Again, another like part of war or like a scene that like is never really that type of the world, but like our military type movies isn't really shown. Somalia and all that kind of stuff was really interesting. And then like right after watching it, I did more research and how accurate everyone says it was to what happened, and like how like the set design was really well done as well. Another good example of like a war movie highlighting a fact of like the America being somewhere where they probably shouldn't be. A lot of war movies do that, and this one definitely highlights that. Awesome. So for my fourth movie, I'm going to go with box office, and I'm going to go with Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan film, so like you can't really go wrong. It's really beautifully shot. I really like the use of time in it as well, of depicting that war. I remember I watched this while being in Europe, so like that was like such an unforgettable experience because we were all like, it was when I went to Europe, it was the week that it was coming out, and we were all like, oh, let's go see Dunkirk. Just we're here, and yeah, it was like a hit in Great Britain because I mean they had their part of it. But yeah, I'm gonna take in 21st century, kind of wild one out there. 300. Yeah. It's definitely a war movie, but it's totally not even close to any other movies that we picked. We were all picking American-based films or more recent wars, while this goes all the way back, and it's just like such an interesting way. Like it's beautifully shot, and it's like crazily, and it's just Sparta, like the battle of the 300 go against the entire Persian army, and how well they fought for what they had. So yeah, I love 300. I love 300.
Yeah, I usually get annoyed sometimes with a lot of the AI in these movies, but I thought the AI done in that movie was first rate.
Yeah.
Almost like that's how you do it. Type.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like dramatizing it. Like it's trying to make it look like a graphic novel or a comic book within a film, which either can end up being really bad but this is an example of it looking really good.
Yeah.
All right, Dad, it's your fifth pick.
Well, I think I'm going to do 20th Century, and I'm going to do Platoon. Again, before your guys' time, but just another classic. Bunch of Oscars. Charlie Sheen did an outstanding job. Tom Berenger, one of my favorite actors. He's awesome. Just a lot of great actors in that. Just showing the complexities of, some bad actors and meaning in the context of war, right?
Yeah.
Being on the bad side of like why you're over there and why you're fighting, losing your focus on why you're there. And
Yeah.
maybe that's just never been there, but maybe it's the act of war taking its toll on people, but just showing that complexity though, that you can see why sometimes something happens over there.
Yeah, for sure. Another Best Picture winner too.
Yep.
So for me, Tyler, I took that as kind of a challenge to get away from like the modern warfare we know. So I'm going to go for 20th century. I'm going to go The Last of the Mohicans. I really like this film, obviously set during the French and Indian War. Had to watch this for my cinematography class in school, and I've kind of loved it ever since. I didn't think it would be something I was interested in, but it's pretty great all around. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
I have not.
It's pretty great. I definitely recommend it.
Yep.
So it has Daniel Day-Lewis in it. So you have seen a Daniel Day-Lewis film.
I have. Remember I told you, I was like, I forgot I've seen that one. And then I guess I got one more here. I'm going to go for my wild card. I'm going to go 13 Hours. I think I could have fit this in a couple of different other categories, but I really enjoyed this film. I think the way it was shot, with them being pinned down, and the usage of time in that sense, it was really eerie for the viewer and kind of portrayed that, messaging of how tough it must have been for them to have been stuck there for that long.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Dad, you got your last pick.
And last pick is my wild card. I'm going Troy. I thought Brad Pitt killed it. I thought it was a great drama and just all out, badass, but love bit him in the ass at the very end, growing attached to someone, but great movie. I love Brad Pitt in that movie.
Yeah, I really like Troy as well. I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember the first time I watched it. Pretty cool. I think for my wild card, there's like three choices that I'm choosing in between Top Gun Maverick, Mulan, and Hurt Locker. So this is a hard decision for me. I kind of just want to go full wild card and go with Mulan. But yeah, I'm going to go with Mulan. I just feel like that's like the definition of a wild card movie. I mean, it's an animated movie set during like the I don't even actually know which is it, the Han Dynasty? Do you know which one it's set during?
I think it's Han. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's a really fun movie. Nothing to take too serious. The remake or like the live action remake is really poorly done, but the original animated one is really well done, and I really like it.
I'm shocked none of us picked Hurt Locker.
Yeah. It was really hard for me not to. I was close to it, but hey, sometimes we talked about it enough. We all liked it. So okay, so my team was Oscar winner Apocalypse Now, box office over 150 million, Dunkirk, 20th Century, Full Metal Jacket, First Century, 300, comedy, Tropic Thunder, and wild card Mulan.
And my team was Oscar winner 1917, box office Hacksaw Ridge, 20th Century, The Last of the Mohicans, First Century was Fury, comedy Inglourious Bastards, and wild card 13.
And mine comedy was Stripes. Great movie. Oscar was Deer Hunter. 20th Century was Platoon. 21st Century, Black Hawk Down. The box office, Saving Private Ryan. And my wild card was Troy.
I got some honorable mentions that I'll throw out there. Hurt Locker being one of them that we didn't pick. Forrest Gump. I think that technically counts as a war movie. I mean, it's a pretty big part of that movie. Top Gun. That was
actually
Maverick.
my number 2 wild card. I was tossing between Troy and Forrest Gump because Tyler knows I've watched Forrest Gump probably 100 times.
Yeah. It's just like when you think of it, it isn't like a war movie that you first think of. That's the only reason why I was like, maybe not. Braveheart, that's another one that I was thinking about. Good Morning Vietnam, another kind of popular one. A Few Good Men. It's a very military movie, but not a war movie, but very like big on the military aspect. Hunt for Red October, another 20th century movie that really gets into like that Cold War aspect. And then Zero Dark 30, really intel type movie. Lone Survivor, another interesting one. Imitation Game. Then Greatest Beer Run Ever. It's a comedy. It has Zac Efron on it. Came out 3 years ago. It's actually pretty funny, but it's about this guy that wanted to get all his guys that were like out in Vietnam a beer from back home. So he literally just flies out to Vietnam and go just to give them a case of beer. And then Jarhead, and then 2 newer movies, Warfare and Civil War.
I'd also want to throw out Casablanca, Schindler's List is a big one. I guess we can count Oppenheimer, and then also War Dogs is a good one too.
Yeah, boy, you guys took like my whole list. But I will give a shout out to John Wayne. I think he's one of the goats of war movies. Though Operation Pacific's a great movie. The Longest Days out in '62 is about D-Days. Another great movie. Sands of Iwo Jima. He was great in that. They Were Expendable out in '45, and Green Berets. All those are. And like I said, he's one of the goats of war movies. If you ever want to watch some old sort of, sort of that sort of World War I type stuff, I thought he did a great job in a lot of those movies. So you talk about goats, he's one of the goats of war movies.
Yeah.
Dude, I forgot about Predator. I forgot Predator took place in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm surprised we didn't say Clint Eastwood's movies either. The Flags of Our Fathers.
There's some like Kelly's Heroes. Some in the comedy like.
Yeah.
If you ever, it's a great comedy. Kelly's Heroes is a great one. Dirty Dozen is another great one. They have more in the comedy side of the house. Some great ones out there that are older and still iconic.
Yeah. Flags of Our Fathers, 2 Letters from Iwo Jima is also interesting. And then All Quiet on the Western Front, also really well done movie. Awesome. Well, thank you for being our guest this week. Hopefully
thank you.
You had some fun.
I had a blast. So thanks for having me on. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. Next week, we are doing Daniel Day-Lewis films. So that'll be interesting. Awesome. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Sweet.